round two.
Oh, I bet you haven't heard that in a while.
There we go. Why don't we start right there? Gentlemen, I did not think we would be having this talk this early into May. If you're new to the show, this is the Leafs Line podcast. We talk about all things Toronto Maple Leafs, hence the name. And today is going to be, I'm not going to say a rough one. There's going to be some optimistic views, some pessimistic views. There's going to be a lot of views on this team that hasn't given us or much of the city much to cheer about in the last, well, my entire life and just about this entire month. But I'm Mary Russo, your host for today, joined by Evan Davis up in Cali, or rather down in Cali, Adam Rimoli and Jared Rotenberg. Gentlemen, I will ask this question before I ask any other question. How are we feeling? What are the emotions like? I know we're a couple days out of the Saturday, whatever you want to call that, Game 7 defeat, but Rimoli, I'll go with you quickly. Give me a quick synopsis of the feelings, the emotions, and I'm sure Leafs Nation's probably in the same boat with you.
Yeah. Well, I watched Steve Dangle. I watch all his LFRs. I still haven't brought myself to watch the Game 7 one, and I don't plan on doing it. We played FIFA last night, me and Mario, and he's like, Damo, can I ask you a question? And I promptly said, is it about hockey? And he's like, yeah. And I said, no. So yeah, there's my man, it sucks. I don't even want to think about the sport. I don't want to think about it. Just every year,
but you're going to have to think about it today, at least probably the last time for a little while for you. But Jared, you've been thinking about hockey for the last, I don't even know, ever since I've known you, you've been talking hockey and talking about it well. Do you have anything well to say about this Toronto Maple Leafs team? How's the feelings inside? I know last year was a tough one, gut-wrenching to say the least, but this one, personally, a different feeling. But where do you stand with your thoughts on this Maple Leafs team?
Well, I'll say more so than in past years, a lot more tears this year. I'm going to be honest. It was a miserable last few days. And it's because it's not as much anger with the team. It's not they fucked up, they didn't show up. It's they looked phenomenal and it just wasn't good enough. And it's not a blow it up, an angry thing. I think we played a phenomenal series against a very good team. And a lot of tears because we were so close. Game 6 and Game 7 were 1-goal games where Tampa just ultimately got that one to give them the lead. We played a great series, and I genuinely all season long, I can't say enough good things about how the team played. I thought we played awesome, but at the end of the day, we still fell short. And as much as I give them their credit, and I thought they played an awesome series, it was just as heart-wrenching and as miserable of a result because we looked awesome, but at the end of the day, we're still not watching our team play in round 2 and onward. So very sad last few days. I still love the team. I have my Leafs things hanging up there. I'll be back next year. It's not anger with them, but it's just find a way, and we just couldn't.
And absolutely, I'm going to put a pin in the effort aspect of this Maple Leafs team. It's been a hot commodity. People are talking about it. People are relating it to certain things. That's going to be a big discussion today. But what I want to touch upon is how we got here, man. Last Saturday, the Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay Lightning, Game 7, 2-1 is your final. Not in favor of the blue and white surrounding my room, the other blue and white. Nick Paul's blue and white, single-handedly putting the pedal to the metal, his feet to every puck he finds, and that puck to the back of the Maple Leafs goal. The Tampa Bay Lightning, well, they finished how a lot of people expected they would finish this series, and they take it in 7. Listen, the difference that I found in that game was it showed the difference between a good team and a great team. That's my thoughts on it personally. Look, Tampa Bay capitalized throughout the series on all the opportunities that the Maple Leafs handed their way. You want to go to Game 6? To me, that was the most heart-wrenching one. We watched it in Leaf Square together. I lost my voice for the next several days, which you guys all know. And listen, you had a bunch of situations, a bunch of opportunities to go up on them, and you just gave it away. And that was the big storyline in Game 6. In Game 7, Tampa just came out and they were the greater team, the better team. They've been there before, and you could see it with the way they reacted on every single shift. Block shots, that category was tremendously favorable towards the Tampa Bay Lightning side. I think that speaks not just to their determination, but their experience. They know if they get in the lane of the shooting, if they get into the shooting lane of any opposing team, it's going to be hard to get to the net. And by all means, it is already hard to get past Andre Vasilevsky. Another token as to why this series was so hard to sort of break down and come to the world with, because they had the opportunity to go past Vasilevsky. They've been doing it. He gave up 3 goals. He was averaging 3 goals a game. He was not at his best, which makes me that's the one that kills me the most. But let's debrief quickly about Game 7. Jared, I'll go back to you, and then I'll switch it over to Evan. What were your thoughts on the Game 7 defeat for the Maple Leafs? One of many, unfortunately, that we have to say. The Nick Paul show. And I want to ask you this question. I don't got many questions queued up, but I'll ask you this. Did the Maple Leafs lose to Tampa Bay Lightning, or did they lose to Nick Paul? Because he seemed to put on all the force for that team, and especially Andre Vasilevsky too. He had saved his best game for last, if you will. So thoughts on Game 7, man? What did you see from it?
Listen, I genuinely thought the Leafs played a great game. By the end of the game, we outshot them, especially in the third period. Yes, they blocked a lot of shots, but at the end of the day, in that third period, I believe we outshot them like 17-6 or something like that. So I can't say the Leafs didn't put in the effort and try. We were absolutely in that game. It wasn't like last year where a minute into Game 7, it's like, okay, they just lost the series. We were in this one until the very end, and that's what, at the end of the day, made it that much more heart-wrenching, is we were right there. We just couldn't find a way to crack Vasilevsky. And yes, Nick Paul played a phenomenal game, but the fact that it was him that was able to score because we shut down all the other guys, it's like, damn, we really lost to them when it's that guy's the only one who could score. We shut down everyone else. Throughout the series, all series long, we found ways to crack Vasilevsky, but aside from the 1 or maybe 2, we couldn't really find a way to crack him in this game, and ultimately they're the team that's moving on to the next round to play Florida. It's just a disappointing result, but I can't say the game was bad. If this were to be a game in the middle of the season, I would have said we were in that game till the very end. It was an awesome performance. We outshot them. The big boys showed up. I thought Mitch Marner looked phenomenal in this game. Yes, a few times holding on to the puck a little bit too much when I'd like him to just shoot it, but otherwise I thought the big boys showed up. We looked really good, but at the end of the day, the result's all that matters in the playoffs, and we just couldn't get it done.
The winning business, man. That's what drives every team. That's what drives the guys who are hired, the guys who are fired. We saw a lot of coaching changes today, and we'll talk about that a little later down the road. But it's a consistency-based business. It's a winning business. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, they just tend to have both the consistency between that depth, the consistency and the star power. And that just goes to show that the Tampa Bay Lightning, the team that I mentioned, separated the great from the good, the Tampa Bay Lightning from the Toronto Maple Leafs, is that they didn't need the offensive power. When they didn't have it, their guys stepped up. The Toronto Maple Leafs, quite frankly, John Tavares scoring the lonesome, or not, sorry, Morgan Riley scoring my bad. So we thought, but Morgan Riley scoring the lonesome goal. The star power was there for the Leafs, but the supporting cast there, it was not. Evan Davis, unlike us, you had the luxury of watching it from a unbiased perspective. You got to see more between we saw it through sunflower glasses. Everything looked the way we kind of wanted it to, or maybe the way we didn't want it to. You got to see it on the equal level, an equal playing field. What did you see from this, not just the series, but more specifically Game 7? I'm sure you tuned in. What were the highlights for you? What stood out for you from both the Tampa Bay Lightning side and, of course, the guys who came out on the losing end, Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like, I know I was definitely like a douchebag in the chat. I was kind of just like wanting to stir the pot a lot, because I was just like, why not? I'm one of the few 4 other guys and girls in that chat that aren't a Leafs fan. But like overall, I was actually really impressed with the Leafs. And I said in our group chat, if you want to count it off the bingo card, is that I think Game 1 was the biggest game for the Leafs this entire series, especially for Mitch Marner, because I do think he was one of the best players in this series for both teams. I think just getting that goal, especially and the 2 assists as well, I thought that was a huge momentum swing right away. And I had a feeling like right after Game 1, I'm like, okay, Mitch Marner is really gonna show up in this series, and he did on both ends. Him on the penalty kill, I think if we did the Selke based off playoffs as well, I think he would get a unanimous first place. I mean, the penalties that he killed in games 1 and 2 especially, I mean, although they lost Game 2, he was phenomenal killing penalties. And when you look at Tampa Bay, and remember we were talking about at the deadline about how we were saying Brandon Hagel and Nick Paul, they might have been traded for a little too much. But if you look at it come playoff time, Brandon Hagel assists on the game-winning goal in Game 6, and Nick Paul scores 2 goals in Game 7. So, we're saying that they give up all these picks, but in the end, there's the ones that, are advancing in the second round. Obviously Hagel for 2 firsts and 2 prospects, and then Nick Paul, I believe, for a couple picks as well. But Tampa Bay's under the belief that we don't need those picks right now, and we're going to seize the opportunity with Stamkos, with Hedman, because obviously they're not getting younger, and just take advantage of what they have. And when they retire, then they'll figure it out. But I think it just sucks for Toronto because, they played so well, and it was a 1-goal game both times, and they had so many opportunities. I know everyone's going to talk just about like the penalties and stuff, but in that overtime in Game 6, I mean, Vasilevsky, you could tell he wasn't planning on losing, and the saves he made on Nylander, Mikheyev, Kampf, I mean, he was phenomenal in that Game 6 in overtime, and I obviously know Game 7 with the whole Justin Hall thing, but if you just looked at Vasilevsky, I know that was 1 goal, huge momentum swing, but even regardless of that, Vasilevsky showed up. The Lightning blocked 26 shots in that game. I mean, there was nothing getting by, and it sucks because, I mean, if you're the Leafs, you're in a situation, it's like, what do we do? Because we were so close, yet so far. So I'm curious. It's going to be an interesting offseason to say the least. But I mean, overall, if this Leafs team played this way against Montreal last year, they definitely would have won. And I mean, who knows? But I know I'm ranting. I just wanted to say one last thing before. When we're talking about games throughout the year, saying, oh, this is a game in February, it doesn't matter. This is a game in December, it doesn't matter. The Leafs are only 6 points behind Florida for that first spot. And I was always saying, I get that it's a game in January, but it still matters. If the Leafs had won those games against Montreal, Arizona, Buffalo, they're beating the Capitals playing this way in 6 games. And then you look at it, maybe Florida's now eliminated. So I just wanted to end on that saying games, all 82 games matter because in the end, it dictates who you play in the playoffs. And if the Leafs had won those games that they should have won, maybe they're in round 2, Florida's at home, and they don't have to play Tampa until the Eastern Conference Finals.
Absolutely. It's a great point. The destiny does lie, as we always say, in their hands. They could have controlled this from the start, but I mean, that's the way a season goes. There's ups and downs, and you can control it to a certain extent. There's some things that just can't shake your way. Injuries are a big one that come. I know when Jack Campbell went down, there was a lot of trouble within this organization, finding some success, finding a groove. But the good teams and the great teams, goes back to that term. The great teams find a way to rally around that. Look at the Florida Panthers. I don't know if I'm going to put them in the great teams yet, but they had a great regular season and they had a great set of players with that mindset that they knew they had to do this, and this to get to that point where they're going to get a favorable matchup in round 1. And we're going to speak to the Panthers a little bit later in the next episode, but listen, they got to that point and that kind of helped them bail them out. They had the weaker opponent and at the end of the day, the better team won. But I don't want to go on a rant on the Panthers. I want to stay on the Toronto Maple Leafs because they're the big topic around the city of Toronto, as obvious as that sounds. Rimoli, this is the one that also sort of bugs me here. There's been a low bar set for so long in the Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, I mean, since I've been around, it's been get by the first round, win a round, and I'm suspect to saying this. I've been screaming it to the top of my lungs. Get one round. One is all I need. I will be satisfied. And a lot of Leafs Nation does agree with that as well. They lowered it to just win a round. And one that I really disagree with, and I saw it extensively on this series compared to the rest that they've been in, is that Leaf fans have also just been satisfied with the hard-fought battle.
Oh my God.
There we go. That is that they lived up to. And that's the thing. Lived up to, I don't see it. That's the bare minimum, in my opinion. That should not be something you live up to if you want to have any success against the Lightning or any big opponent. If you're living up to it, I'm sorry, you're playing a chasing game. You're behind. What can you speak to the low bar that the Maple Leafs had to limbo under, but can never seem to come away with the task? Please speak to this one because it's just been bugging me, and it's been bugging a lot of people that I've been discussing with as well.
Yeah, and we mentioned before I had a tweet to pull up, so I'm going to pull it up now because it basically says what you just said from JD Bunkus, who's a writer in Toronto. He says, Leaf fans are so down. Many of you are okay with first round exits because this time they tried harder and it wasn't embarrassing. This is what happens when an entire generation grows up without winning a series. And I see a lot of not very happy Leaf fans there, but you know what?
I respond to that.
He's right. JD Bunkus is 100% right.
Yeah. This
Leaf series was, okay, so in elementary school, I had to do speeches. I don't know if you guys had speeches, but basically it's a presentation, whatever. You talk about whatever the heck you want. the Maple Leafs effort this year was the equivalent of going right after the kid who got an F. Because, he got an F last year. Well, this kid, he showed up and got his B+, but it made it look so good because the year before us was a big F. The speech before us was a big F. I don't care that they tried their best. And you know what? I'm happy that they tried their best because
we now know they can reach the bare minimum. And isn't that sad?
They can, in fact, reach the bare minimum. They can try their best. And it wasn't good enough. It flat out was not good. And you know what? Did they outplay the Lightning? Most of the series, yeah, they did.
Not when it mattered.
So. I'd say so. And you know what?
Point too.
They did outplay them when it mattered. What they didn't do when it mattered was what they've been doing and been struggling to do all season long. Finishing. There was no finish on this, and that's what it comes down to. Honestly, in a small game sample size, finishing is where it's at. How many times do we say every year but we deserve to win-o-meter them. We were better than the Habs. We were better than the Bruins both years. We were better than the thing. Low shooting percentage. Running at the hot goalies. Who's the common denominator here?
I want to say the Maple Leafs, but
you might be right.
I know, dropped out of math, so I like.
Word. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And that was it. And that's not to say they can't score. It's you had how many chances in that overtime to put them home? Yep. You had how many chances in that third period of Game 7? All of Game 7. What the hell? To put them home. Hold on to the puck for the extra deke. Making the extra pass. So it comes down to 7 games.
Absolutely. And I mean, one thing that I want to bring up as well, and it is about the effort. And I want to get into that killer instinct that you were discussing, that go for the jugular element that this team just simply does not have. I want to save that because that is a conversation that I'm very passionate about. And I want to get into it a little bit later. But what I want to still touch upon now, because I think it's fresh in the memory of Leaf fans, still fresh in the minds of us on the show here, it's the effort. Now, you spoke to it very well. Listen, the effort this year, no matter how good people think it was, no matter how obsolete people think it has, the bare minimum that we have to reach, the effort here will mean nothing at all if there isn't a different result next year. That's my take on it here. This effort, as good as it is, if this is the best effort that they said that they can put towards, if this is the best effort, it is going to mean nothing if they put this effort and then some and don't get another round. I think it's going to make it worse than it is going to be better. Jared, I want to ask you, because you were also talking about the effort at the beginning of the show. Listen, the effort it was there, and you mentioned it yourself, but do you see our side of it as well, where it's like, if that's the bare minimum, what are we doing here? It shouldn't be a bare minimum. The bare minimum should be winning a round, and that's the bare minimum for all.
By the way,
there we go.
I forgot to mention that we were mathematically favorites according to Las Vegas. Heavy favorites in Game 7, might I add.
I was taking Tampa money line just for value.
Smart man.
Whatchamacallit? I 100% see your guys' point, and that's why me saying, okay, I like the effort they played with, it doesn't make me feel satisfied. It still didn't change the fact that I was sitting in my bed crying. I'm disappointed with the result. I'm disappointed that they couldn't step up and bury that goal at the end of Game 7 when we had a whole lot of the game to tie it up. We were very close, but we couldn't find a way to win it. And the effort doesn't mean anything, to be honest, in the sense that we didn't get the result and we're not playing into this next week and beyond. It's frustrating, and it definitely doesn't give me the satisfaction, because at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that I'm sitting here miserable. But it's just about, yes, it's a low bar, but compared to the past years, it's a little bit different, and it feels different, because in the other ones, I was actually mad at the Leafs and the way they played, and the fact that you didn't show up in this moment. You made a brain dead play and whatever. I don't think this year, yes, there was a few Kerfoot's turnovers, a big one I look at. There was a few moments where we made mistakes and the Lightning capitalized. But at the end of the day, I thought we played a hell of a series against a team that's the back-to-back champions for a reason. And I do think we played very well and somewhat at least rose to the challenge, which, yes, it's the bare minimum, and I'm not satisfied with how it turned out. But I'm just saying there's not an individual player right now where I'm like, get them the hell off my team. It's not the same as last year, in the sense that I was actually last year, there was a little bit of time where I was embarrassed to say I'm a Leafs fan, embarrassed to put on my jersey. I don't feel that way this year. I seriously, I know it's so loserish to say. I'm proud of how this season went. I think we've had a phenomenal season. The result sucks, but I definitely am not ashamed to say I'm a Leafs fan after this one. We had a hell of a series against a phenomenal team. At the end of the day, the more experienced team won, however, and I'm frustrated, but it's not one you blow it up after because we played a hell of a series, in my opinion.
And nor should you. You should not be ashamed to be a Maple Leafs fan. You have number one, as we've discussed numerously on the show, you got the best looking hockey player on the planet playing on your first line. So you should not be ashamed of that. You have a bunch of superstars who can score and get all the home hardware that they want. That will mean legitimately nothing the next 10 to 20 years sitting on their trophy cases. You could have that. You should not be ashamed because you have those players. You have defense who was fourth best in the playoffs this postseason. That's nothing to scoff at. They were the fourth best. There was a bunch of teams in round one that played. You should not be ashamed and hang your head low on that. You have a goaltender that, for the most part, outdueled the other goaltender, the one who won the Conn Smythe, a bunch of Vezina trophies. You should not be ashamed of that either. He played terrific. But what you should be ashamed about, and what everybody should be ashamed about, is the result. And that's what's going to be talked about extensively through the off season. It's going to play a role in every single move that this team makes, or could it be lack thereof? We'll get our thoughts on that later. It's going to be in the minds of everyone. And listen, the result plays a big factor in the next thing that I want to segue to. We were talking about it with Adama. You were talking about it rather, is the one that gets me so rattled up. It's hard to fathom, and I have to put it in words, which is the hardest part about this sort of little job that I do. I have to put it in words, and I don't want to. Killer instinct. That is the big topic that I was really waiting to talk about, and here we are. They were this series at least 0-2 in elimination games against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had the opportunity in Game 6 to kick them out, the two-time champs, and ruin the three-peat chance and move on, snap the 18-year curse, and Leafs Nation would be praising like crazy. Didn't happen. Game 7, you had the chance to do it, and as we all know, and we've discussed thoroughly already, didn't happen. I said this, and you guys probably didn't listen to it. This was before YouTube days, when all my podcast guys from the past left me in the dust, and it was all by myself for the Leafs Line podcast around the same time this year, which is very sad to say. But I started off my very own by myself Leafs episode with this phrase that I'm sure you've heard all over the radio today. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
I tweeted that.
That's what Adama tweeted.
Yeah, I started that off last year, and I could have started off this year, which is such a pain, but it still remains prevalent. 0-2. And I'm not even going to pull up the stats. I think it's 0 for 10, 0 for 11, and it's Matthews era 0-6, something like that. There's a big zero. That's what starts off, and that's the big problem with this team. Listen, this is a question that I don't think you guys have the answers to. I don't want to pose this on you, but I want to hear your thoughts on it because that's what we want to do on this show. We want to hear our thoughts, and maybe we could find solutions because there's going to be a lot of creativity this offseason. Why not start the Leafs Line podcast, right? So listen, Evan, I'll go with you.
Oh, hell.
Where do you find said killer instinct?
If you say Jordan Binnington,
no, I got you.
I'm going to grab your esophagus and turn it into mashed potatoes.
You know where to find me.
Do you find it from within, and do they already have it? And if you've been paying any attention over the last year, 2, 3, or whichever year you want to pick, I'll give you your free choice. Is it from within? And there's no signs that point to it, but there's a lot of people saying that run it back with this team. So maybe there is a chance that it's still lingering right below their eyes. But where's the killer instinct? Where's it got to be? Where's it come from? That's the big burning question that Leafs should have been asking themselves day 1 of 82.
Yeah, you can't run it back with this team because they obviously didn't show any success. It's not a really different team from last year. I mean, obviously you added depth pieces like David Kampf. You got Lyubushkin in that trade for Nick Ritchie. But the issue is you can't expect this team to have the same thing. And you know what, Adamo? I am going to say it. I really don't think the Leafs should bring back. I don't care. I really don't think the Leafs should bring back Jack Campbell. I think they should find a way to trade Peter Mrazek because obviously you're not keeping Peter Mrazek on your team at $3.5 million. Now the issue is if the team takes him, but I do think, we look at St. Louis, Ville Husso's a UFA. They're most likely going to make him their starter. Why not? And this might not be a hot take for you Leaf fans, but I would trade William Nylander for Jordan Binnington. Maybe not a 1-for-1, but I would definitely throw William Nylander in that deal. And my issue is that Nylander should not be on your third line making $7 million. No team would have a $7 million guy on their third line. And I hear him crying in the back, but you will, if you trade Mrazek and Campbell, you'll have enough cap space. If you let Campbell walk and you trade Mrazek, you'll have enough cap space for Jordan Binnington. The issue is, what are you going to give up for him? And Nylander's set to be a UFA in 2 years. Are you going to have enough to pay him, Matthews, Marner, keep Tavares, keep all these guys? Like, I personally think that. I think they should let go of Hall and use Liljegren and Sandin on that third pairing. But I'm not trying to blow it up, but at the same time, it's like, if it ain't working, why are we keeping it?
Now, I do want to ask this question before you go, Jared, and I think it suits well to the former question I had before. You just named me I wouldn't say terrific plan, but it is darn well a plan, and Dubas doesn't seem to have that right now as we speak, but there is a plan. But I asked where you're going to get killer instinct from. Where do these guys have killer instinct?
Look, I think
you just named me a bunch of players. Yeah, that doesn't mean they're getting killer instinct.
This also might not be a hot thing as well, but I really don't think John Tavares should be the captain of the team anymore. Like,
that's a good take.
When I well then Evan did something right. It's
rare Evan Dub.
I know, but when I'm looking at this team, and like, I remember even that game in Detroit when it was 10-7. Everyone's looking on the bench for who's going to say something. I remember they cut the camera to Marner and he's like, well, who's going to say something? And the fact that John Tavares was struggling so much, and I noticed even he slammed his stick a few times when he wasn't scoring. Like, you can't have that guy wearing the C. You can't have that. And I think we were talking about it earlier, but I think you either give it to Morgan Rielly, who's been your longest tenured Leaf, or you give it to Austin Matthews. Like, the fact that he doesn't wear a letter from night to night and it's only on home games or whatever the hell it is, road games, I don't know. That's so weird to me that a 60 goal scorer is splitting time with someone else. But I definitely don't think John Tavares should be the captain moving forward. He doesn't, I don't know if it's the pressure of him being a Ontario kid playing for the Leafs, but I don't see leadership when I see John Tavares.
So you're telling me here, let me get this correct. You're telling me the thing that separates the Toronto Maple Leafs from achieving the one thing that has been separating them from the first and the second round, that killer instinct, is the letter on the front of their jersey to the left or to the right.
But I think that means so much more than just it's about leadership within the locker room. Like, that could swing a team. Look, I'll say, when the Kings took the C off of Dustin Brown and put it onto Anze Kopitar, it was a shocker in the Kings organization, but you need a new voice to be like, this is Mr. Dependent, this is our reliable guy. I mean, the fact that it was Spezza giving that speech in the locker room, I don't remember what game it was, game 5 or whatever. Yeah. Like, the fact that it's Spezza and not Tavares shows how little people actually care about Tavares' voice in the locker room, that they have to get it from Jason Spezza. Like, if you're the captain of the team, like you see in Boston with Patrice Bergeron, he's the one saying this, and that. You know, you see captains all around. Jared Spurgeon in Minnesota, Ryan O'Reilly in St. Louis, like people that are respected. And it just doesn't seem like you're getting that with Tavares if other guys are the ones that have to step up and say something.
It's a good point. Leadership obviously does play a role. So what I'm kind of hearing from this one too is that it's here. The killer instinct is within. It just separates who's going to be the leader, who's going to be vocal at the right and appropriate amount of times.
Yeah.
So it's
as silly as it sounds, it all comes down to leadership in the locker room.
It doesn't sound too silly.
If you don't have it, then you got to find something else. So if it means giving him the A instead of the C, like, maybe you got to do that.
Adamo, you've been in a locker room a lot longer than I have. You've been in a hockey dressing room. You've seen what it's like, the round table of roles from different players. Does a simple role change from captain to leader or whoever is going to be stepping up in the right occasion, is that going to give a team the one thing that's going to put them over the edge and give them that killer instinct to kill any team whatsoever that stands in their way.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, I think in the NHL, especially more than minor hockey. I have worn a letter before, and it's not like as important in minor hockey, but when you're spending every single day with these guys, you need a leader. And there have been studies that proven leadership, you can't have too much leadership. There's no such thing. So the more leaders this team has, the better. And I was talking about it with my dad, what they could do this offseason. And I first of all, thank God I'm not Kyle Dubas, because boy, I wouldn't know where to start. But two, my only idea like I'd say would be feasible is exactly what Evan said. Maybe it's time Austin Matthews takes the wheel. Like he is your on ice leader. He's your goals. He guy scored 60 goals, and he showed up he showed up this year. He had 9 points in 7 games.
64 this season.
He's ridiculous. He hits a lot because that, big, rough, and tough Toronto. And I don't think it's going to happen because Toronto is very corporate, as we know, and having the quiet Toronto boy be captain it just makes sense. But if this team is serious about winning, I think you do look at John Tavares and say, hey man, games 1, 2, 3, and 4, where's our $11 million captain? You can't just show up for 3 of the 7 games.
It's a pain that $11 million is going to not get you a couple important words and important times, and it's going to cost you a series. I find that very unfortunate, to say the least. Jared, what do you have to say about the killer instinct? Is it in the organization? Do they have to go out and get it? Because, I mean, this is my personal thing here. I don't know if words can help. I think it's what shot is going to go in. We talked about this, Jared. We were in the square discussing this very thoroughly in that overtime game, game 6. Who is going to be the hero? Who is going to be the guy who takes that massive step forward? Mikheyev could have done it in game 6 in Montreal. Mikheyev could have done it in game 7 in game 6 in this series. Any player could have done it in this series, but it did not happen. That's what I refer to as the killer instinct. You have the opportunity right there against one of the league's best goaltenders that we've seen in this generation, and you can't get it done. Who is going to get you done? And is it solved by a simple guy, a new voice in the locker room, or a guy who's a more prominent voice in the locker room? Because personally, I don't believe it's as simple as that. I think that's an easy fix that'll cover a bit of ground very easily, but I don't think that's going to be a permanent fix when it comes to when it actually matters, when you have to get those shots in the back of the net. So where do you find this killer instinct? Because God, I need an answer. Kyle Dubas probably needs an answer. I think everyone needs an answer, and they need some words about where they can get this thing.
Yeah, for one thing, I'm going to start just talking about the letter thing. Yes, I think it's an easy thing to kind of show to everyone that, okay, we're changing how the leadership's going to go. And I'm definitely not opposed with taking the C off of John Tavares and putting it on to Austin Matthews. I do think that's actually what's going to happen heading into next year. But I don't think that's one move that changes everything in terms of the killer instinct. And to be honest, I don't think there's one trade you could make. Yes, it's nice to add more depth options, some players that have done it before, some players that have been proven to get it done in the playoffs. And I definitely would like Dubas to get some more depth guys. But I don't think you can make one trade that instantly puts the Leafs over the edge, because in my opinion, our team was good enough to get it done this year, and it was good enough to get it done in the past few years. So I don't think it's one trade necessarily you need to make. I think it's in the room, and looking back at that overtime, looking back on everything, the fact that we had breakaways in overtime and things like that, we were one goal away from ending all this narrative. And for that reason, I don't think it's one thing you could actually do and one player you could acquire that instantly, okay, they got this one guy, they're instantly going to go on a run, instantly going to win a cup. Hockey doesn't work like that. It's all about how you play, who steps up in those big moments. And unfortunately, as much as I guess a non-answer as that is, it's impossible to say, okay, this is your moment and this is the one player that is going to get it done. Anyone has the skill to be the hero. Mikheyev 2 years in a row could have been the guy to get it done. Again, Kerfoot had a breakaway in overtime against Vasilevsky and could have potted. So I don't think there's one guy you could instantly get to give you that killer instinct. I just think we've had multiple years in a row, these moments where we're one goal away from eliminating a team and moving on and around. I guess it starts with the leadership, but I don't know, how do you get, someone needs to pot a goal. Like at the end of the day, we've had, I guess over the past 2 years, we've had 3 examples: Game 5 against Montreal, Game 6 against Montreal, Game 6 against Tampa. 1 goal away from eliminating a team. I don't know what's going on where we've had great overtimes. 2 years in a row, Game 6, we dominated the team in terms of shots. I don't know why it is that we just can't pot a goal. And yes, we're facing good goalies, but at the end of the day, someone needs to step up and be a hero. And I don't know who you get to do that, but everyone in this locker room is NHLers for the reason they have the skill. Someone needs to find a way to score. Before I move on, though, I want to get back to the first thing Evan said talking about the offseason. I was going to kind of interject and say it right away, but obviously we moved on to other things. I do want to say one tweet that I have in front of me talking about Evan's argument that we should trade Nylander.
Yes, Jared.
This one comes from
the pushback. The gloves are off.
From obscure death metal note.
Oh, love that.
The Leafs have noted analyst obscure death metal note. He says the Leafs have just north of $7 million in cap space going into the offseason. Kerfoot, Hull, and Mrazek all combined to make approximately $9.3 million. And it won't be as hard to move them as you may think. You could also look at moving Muzzin's $5.6 million to give the Leafs much needed offseason heading into next year. The saying of, quote unquote, the only way to clear cap is by trading Nylander is quite simply lazy.
I wasn't saying that it was a way to clear cap. I was saying, I was saying, like, in terms of value, who out of your core 4 are you going to trade? I wasn't saying
who's most expendable.
Like, I wasn't saying like it was to clear cap space. I was also saying that, like, in terms of, because St. Louis is also kind of in a little bit of a cap crunch. I was saying in terms of trading AAV, like dollar for dollar, and also out of the 4, you're most likely going to let go of Nylander because who knows if you're going to re-sign him when he hits UFA.
Can we stop with this? I've been trying to end this this whole notion about Leafs having a core 4. They have a core 3.
They do.
John Tavares, Austin Matthews, and number 16, Mitch Marner. That's the core 3.
Okay.
Those are the big boys. William Nylander, although he's playing like a superstar, is being paid like a second liner.
Yes.
Morgan Rielly is putting up Norris production. We quietly had 60-something points this season, and not a peep from anyone. He's not part of that core either. Though, if you trade William Nylander, it does nothing. You are moving laterally. You aren't getting better. You aren't changing the identity of this team because he is not that. As much as I love Willie, he is not. He's Guy. He's Guy that is very good at hockey and then goes and walks his dog in his socks and sandals at Yorkville. I don't think trading him is going to do anything. And, just for shits and giggles, he has 19 points in his last 18 playoff games.
Yeah,
I concur.
I agree. I don't know. Obviously, okay, I guess I misunderstood Evan's point where you weren't saying it's for
I wasn't
money
saying
thing,
to dump cap. I was just saying, like, value for value. You're not going to...
I guess, but I still, to be honest, my opinion, obviously this isn't our off-season episode. We have a lot more playoff stuff to get into. But I just want to say, to kind of close off the off-season stuff, I don't think you get the fix by trading the core. I don't think the problem necessarily is, and I don't think you get an instant fix by flipping out one of the big boys. I don't think that's how you fix this thing because, to be honest, as much as it sucks to say, I think we proved this year that we're a very good team and we can get it done. One other bounce, Kerfoot buries that goal in overtime. We can get it done even against a great team. So that's why I don't think the answer is trading out one of the big boys. I think you make a lot more similar moves like Dubas made this year. You get another guy like a Bunting, a cheap, kind of somewhat gritty, but guy that could play with the big boys, but isn't quite that star. I think that's really the only thing that you could do this offseason that is hopefully going to give you that ability to move forward in the playoffs. But I don't think there's one move you can make that instantly gives you that fix. And that's, I guess, the tough role of being an NHL GM is unless a Connor McDavid is right there in front of you, you aren't really getting a trade that instantly makes you better and puts you that much more over the hump.
And listen, you want to talk about tough part of being a GM. Kyle Dubas is right there. But what's really strange to me is that he's got to deal with all these questions that, unfortunately, I'm not even going to say unfortunately, you guys don't even have the tools to answer this question of what I asked. Where is the killer instinct? Where to find it? And I apologize, but it's a question that has to be presented. And Kyle Dubas is going to have his hands full doing it. But you want to know what I don't understand? Why this question is so hard? They already had a year to think about it. They didn't have killer instinct last year. What was the plan? Oh, let's bring in some savvy vets, some Joe Thornton, some guys who have been there time and time and time again, who are so darn hungry for the Stanley Cup. They will have the voice. They will be so proactive in leading us. They're going to say, guys, I want the cup. I want it more than all of you. And then when it matters, when they need that goal in overtime, they're going to be the ones that say, I want it, go out and get it for me because I have the pedigree and I want it so darn bad. Did not work. It didn't work. So the veterans one, swipe that one off the bingo card because that is not going to be an option. You want guys with Stanley Cup rings on your team? What's that going to do? It doesn't do really much at all. Jake Muzzin. It didn't really help them at all either. Bogo, another one. No help there either. So the veteran one is definitely out of the cards. It's something creative. And that's one that you presented. That's what I want to see maybe come to fruition, maybe change the leadership. I don't believe it's going to make a big change, but it's something creative. It's something we haven't seen before. It could potentially have big, shaking, groundbreaking effects on this team. Is it getting a big piece? I'm not going to say the core four because we kind of established what the core four really is, but a big piece that could maybe shake up this lineup. I don't know if that's the real thing either, but yet Kyle Dubas has not tried that yet. So he's got to still has a bunch of bullets that he can still fire to maybe get this thing going. But listen, killer instinct. Some teams have it. Some teams don't. The Maple Leafs just simply don't have it. They haven't had it. And you got to go ask the bigger teams, the guys who have won it, where do they get it from? And quite frankly, they don't know. Want to know why? It's just a natural thing. It is in players' DNAs. It's in teams' DNAs, which brings me to the home run point that I'm going to make before we sign off this show. The identity of this team. We've been talking about that, kicking this can all around throughout the A2 game season. There's been some changes in the identity of this team. We've said them, but some of them do remain the same. Oh boy, what is the identity of this team? Has it changed at all? Adamo, please speak to this because you spoke to this before. It inspired me to hit this home run of a discussion. Yeah. What is the identity of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Some might call it the hateable losers. I had to actually throw that in there because my dad was very much pressuring me to put that in the podcast. So Dad, there you go. I said it. Be happy. Hateable losers. He wanted me to say that. I'm still kind of decoding it myself. Now? Yeah. That's a good question. I've been eating Wheaties and Shreddies for the last couple of days, but no, what is the identity, man? What is it?
I just came up with probably the greatest little slang like that. Okay, whatever. The least superstars I have ever seen. These guys are so not super, but they are. My God, Matthew scored 60 goals.
Yeah, he did. Selke, and it means nothing.
He played like a Selke winner and scored 60. Nothing. The Toronto boy put up 97 points. Where was it, Mitch? Where was it?
They were our two leading playoff scorers. I don't know if I could really pin it on them. They showed up.
Jared, we lost.
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't care.
You take those points to the golf course.
I don't care. Nice. I'm happy. I'm happy. Thank you, Marner. Thank you. $11 million, and you did. Tavares. You don't look impactful, but then I look down. Oh, this guy had 78 points. What the hell? You're good too. Nylander. I'm not even gonna group you into here, but my God, you were a rock star. But it would have been nice if you showed up in Game 7 a little more. He didn't particularly have a great Game 7. I didn't think until that third period.
That breakaway, man. That was.
Fuck. It'd be nice if you could tuck a breakaway, Nylander. That's
it. I thought that went in, man.
That's it. It'd be really not. You get you. I think he led the NHL in breakaways, right?
I believe so. He was up there.
It'd be nice if you tucked a couple more. I don't. Like. There are some basic, and it's completely off topic. There are some NHL stats that I've actually learned don't have a real definition. You guys know takeaways? You guys know what a takeaway is?
Just when you grab it the other way.
No.
Do they also classify as
I'm
someone
still
dumps the puck in the zone and then like you just grab it, or like?
I'm still hung up on what they classify as a hit. That's where mine is at.
I don't know. I know the
cost me a couple fantasy championships here and there.
Yeah. Like
Mario wants a word with Batman.
What's a hit? What's a breakaway? What's a there's others, but yeah, to go back to the identity thing, man. I don't know. I have no idea who these guys are. I don't know when we're gonna figure it out, but till then, I guess. Please, Lou, go on.
There. Well, I got a simple answer that might suffice, and I mean, it points to all the context that we've been given in a short period of time. They're losers. They are all losers. They have not won anything to this point in their at least I'll speak for the superstars, or the superstars, as you called them, Adamo. They haven't won anything.
Not superstars.
Not superstars. Thank you.
Super.
They haven't won anything at all. And listen, it kind of goes to show that money. I don't know what the payroll is for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think it was at the beginning of the year released as $650 million of the cap was dedicated towards the big guys.
The Leafs have 90 at the end of the year. They had 91,000 out of 83.7 million in cap space remaining.
Okay, so not much cap space.
About like 80. Yeah. They used about like 83.2. Like,
oh, do you guys want a fun? You guys want a fun stat?
I do. I do.
The cap, just very quick, very short.
Yeah.
Because you brought up cap space for next year. Toronto Maple Leafs will be working at whatever $200,000 less than the cap because of Timothy Liljegren's entry level deal. He hit a plus-minus bonus in the last game against Boston. He made himself $200,000, and it now is against the Leafs cap.
Oh boy, that's funny. Yeah, that's how they get you these days, eh? But going back to what I was saying, the identity of this team is a bunch of losers. And the reason the big superstars, they're not superstars, they have not won anything. And you want to look at all the money that's allocated towards these guys. It shows you that money can't buy you that huge killer instinct that we've been talking about all day long. It doesn't buy you a round victory. Money does not buy you anything. It doesn't even buy you happiness for Leaf fans. It hasn't bought me any happiness at all. Not even the nice jerseys that are tucked away. Will be tucked away till next October in my closet. That hasn't bought me any happiness. Just pure anger. And Jared, as you reveal it, I don't even want to look at it right now. That's the identity for me, a bunch of losers, and I don't want them to fall under the spell rather of a couple teams that I did a little bit of digging and looked at them. Now, you guys probably don't remember this, but we don't remember this. The last time the Maple Leafs won a series was against the Ottawa Senators. Did you know that the Maple Leafs beat the Ottawa Senators a bunch of times in the early 2000s? Yeah, the Ottawa Senators, they were a terrific team that just never won anything between the years of 1998 and 2004. Terrific regular season team. They had all the destined opportunities to go far in the playoffs. All the hype was with them, and they wouldn't get by. Well, this is a weird one. The Toronto Maple Leafs, that was their hurdle. And people argue that's one of the best teams to never win a cup. And I would actually somewhat agree. They had a bunch of key players. Daniel Alfredsson was one that led the way. I think Jason Spezza was on the roster as well. Prime Jason Spezza, but when was he not really in his prime? Let's be honest here. So they had all their good players, couldn't get it done. You want to look at another team, the mid-2000s San Jose Sharks. Patrick Marleau in his prime. Joe Thornton was just traded and started his resurgence in San Jose. And Brett Burns, well, he was a young little buck getting his feet and grizzly beard dirty in the National Hockey League and getting a lot of things done. That team, a lot of playoff success, but quite evidently nothing to show for it in the Stanley Cup category. Maple Leafs, learn from these teams, because if you can have such a great team in the regular season and have a great performance a bunch of times in the postseason, but can't get it done, well, you're going to end up like these guys at the bottom of the league. Nobody cares about them. There's no really any movement around these teams. Or, hey, you could take a page of these teams' books, one of which you already faced, the Tampa Bay Lightning. These guys, well, they've been drafting for quite some time. Do you guys remember when Steven Stamkos was drafted? Let me hear it, Adamo, because you got it. Or Jared, 2008. How long has it been since 2008? I don't know, 2018, 10 years?
13 years.
13 years. And look what they have built up. It wasn't an easy process. It was a long one, but hey, you got 2 Stanley Cups that if you got out of the first round this year, nobody would be talking about it because you had 2 rings. Want to look at another team? This one is a little bit more tailored to the Toronto Maple Leafs because they had an opportunity to get this done. The Washington Capitals. Now, they had a long time coming. They built their core up. Ovechkin was drafted. Kuznetsov came. Backstrom, Ovi, that was a tandem. That was a duo. Marner and Matthews, similar stance, great goal scorings, lots of awards. It was there. All the individual accolades, all the playoff stuff. They got in there all the time. Great regular seasons, but they could never get over one thing. Jared, what was that one thing they could never get over?
The Pittsburgh Penguins.
The Pittsburgh Penguins. That is correct. They could not get over that hurdle. And once they did, Jared, what happened after that? They hoisted this thing that I have never seen in my life come to the city of Toronto unless you go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. They hoisted the Stanley Cup. That's a hurdle that they got over. It's the fake one, too. It's not even the real one.
Yeah.
Fake one.
Yeah.
Maple Leafs haven't touched the fake one or the real one. The reason why they haven't gone over a hurdle. Maple Leafs, learn from these teams. Learn from yourself. Learn from your previous defeats. I'm sorry about the rant. I don't think I've ever been this passionate on the Leafs Line podcast, but given the circumstances, I had to let it go. And I know I have a bit of time to play with. I'm going to turn the questions back over to you two, Jared and Evan.
Hold on. I know why you are shitting yourself. And I'll give you a second to catch your breath.
Please.
Need to grab some toilet paper.
Yeah.
That too.
So, Alexander Ovechkin.
Yeah. What about him?
He resigned.
He did.
He resigned. And you know why? Because the Caps gave him reason to resign.
They did.
Austin Matthews is up in 2 years.
He has no reason to stay here, and that's so sad.
He can go be, I swear to God, part owner, if the CBA allows it, of the Arizona Coyotes. I'm not joking. He can go do that. He can go to LA and make 15 mil. He can, what I think is going to happen, go to the Rangers and make 15 mil. He can go wherever the hell he wants because he is from there and he can. What incentive have we given him to stay?
Yeah.
Steven Stamkos.
I was going to go to that one. He got offered to come to Toronto. He got offered. And you want to know why he said no? Because he knew he could win in another blue and white uniform.
Well, not only that, but I mean, like, if we want to get more financial,
we don't want to. Why?
He would make more in Tampa Bay.
For sure. That's a big one. There's no
taxes. He also, by the way,
also, why would you want to leave Florida for Toronto in terms of weather?
This is a little insider info. I talked to the guy that negotiated his contract. Yeah, Stamkos's options were Tampa. So his three were Tampa, Buffalo, Toronto. It went Tampa, Buffalo, Toronto. He had Buffalo, Toronto, by the way. Yeah. He was not close to coming to Toronto.
Love to be a fly in that negotiation room. That is for sure. But I'm going to wrap up my point because I want to get your guys' thoughts on the identity of this team as well. Listen, I mentioned Washington. I mentioned Tampa Bay. The reason why I bring these guys up and the other teams that went with them is just because it took a long time to get to the promised land. It took a bunch of things that they had to break through. It took faith. It took trust. It took a winning culture to be built. Steven Stamkos, he got offered, like we mentioned, to go other places. Now, you can argue all the financial stuff you want, but I think deep down inside, he saw something in this team. He saw that he could win. Ovi, I believe he signed after the Cup, did he not?
He just signed last summer. Yes,
he signed last summer. I remember talking about it very recently. But regardless, we don't know why he signed. He could have went a bunch of other places, but he's won it before. He knows what winning feels like, and he says these guys have what it takes to go the distance once more. Guys, if you win something, anyone will come. They will preach from the rafters. They will preach from everywhere. Toronto will go ecstatic. Oh, this, that, and that. Leafs, fall under these teams. Study them. Learn from your previous mistakes and build off of those. And then these ones. Look at the examples. Learn from not just your history, but the history of the league. And maybe that could lead you and point some success in the right direction. Guys, I'm sorry for the rant. I really apologize. But that's it's just been bottled up for a couple days. It's been bottled up and I had to release it. Jared, I want you to release it all on here too. What is the identity of the Toronto Maple Leafs right now? That's another first round exit. One of many, too much for me to count. Are they still a bunch of losers like I say? Is this franchise just cursed? Are you going to go that far and give me the voodoo of how this team is cursed? What are they?
They're really fucking good, but not good enough. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Great team, phenomenal team. And this time I can't even say, oh, the big boys didn't show up. No, everyone showed up. We were getting production from all of the top guys. Morgan Riley as well was getting amazing points in offense from defense. The depth was doing fine, definitely not amazing, but they were getting their fair share of cookies, and David Kampf was scoring. We had a lot of production even throughout the playoffs, but as well all throughout the regular season. We had a phenomenal year, a franchise record year of our best season in 105 years. And at the end of the day, we weren't good enough to take down a great team that we were matched up against, but There's no excuses. That's our matchup. We at times in the series showed we were good enough to beat them. I still believe we are good enough to beat them and will be good in years to come. But at the end of the day, we just couldn't step up in Game 6 and Game 7. We had very good games, I'd say, in both of those games. But when you're looking at the records, the only thing that shows is L's in those 2 games categories, and we couldn't get it done in those moments. And that's all people are going to remember. Obviously, we're going to remember our emotions watching those games and, oh, this moment was great. This moment was great. We outshot them here. We looked great there. All that people remember, though, is this is another line in many first-round exits. And we're good enough. I don't believe it's like last year where they didn't show up and the team is they passed up an opportunity. It's a shitty team and they're a horrible team and they didn't show up, whatever. I don't think it's any of that this year. I think they showed up phenomenally. I really think the big boys actually played great and played like you need the big boys to play. But all that people are going to remember is we just couldn't get it done. And until we get it done, which I don't believe is impossible, that's all people are going to say about us. Great team, could never get it done, though.
Until they change the narrative, Jared, this is all they're going to be. And the one thing that's, I think, is the most frustrating of them all, let's all be honest here. We got to wait 360 plus days to finally witness this team change a narrative. And we're not going to be thinking about hockey for a good 2-3 month portion of that because we don't want to go down that road. We're going to have to wait so long.
Let's watch another useless 82 games.
We got to watch a bunch of other playoff series and think, oh, Leafs could have been there.
I watched maybe 60% of the games with like work and other stuff, and that was a drag. It was, my God, I had got to watch the Columbus Blue Jackets on a Tuesday night. God,
that'll show your identity. Beat them down. 8-0.
We gotta do it again. We gotta do it again.
And again.
And if you remember, going into this season, the narrative was, we tried our best to make it not that, but it really was. Oh, doesn't matter till the playoffs. Doesn't matter till the playoffs. You can only prove it in the playoffs. And here are the playoffs. And Charlie Brown, he's running up to kick the football, and Lucy, like the asshole that she is, grabs it, and Charlie Brown goes flying on his back. Every time.
That's the Leaf season right there in a nutshell.
Evan, last call. The last comments of the show before we wrap this thing up. Identity. Make it quick. Make it swift. What is the identity of this team?
I mean, I don't know what the identity of this team is because
many do.
I mean, to Jared's point, I mean, they do have a phenomenal regular season. I can't say they had a phenomenal playoffs because they didn't end up winning. I'd say they had a great playoff run and they gave Tampa a run for their money, which I honestly did not expect before the series. But as the series was going on, I'm like, okay, this could definitely turn into a 7-game nail biter. But I mean, yeah, and then also to Adamo's point, like, dude, if the Leafs don't win a round, like, let alone even make the Eastern Conference Finals, like, I really don't see a reason for Matthews to stay because this dude probably wants to win a Stanley Cup, and as shitty as it sounds, it's most likely not going to happen in Toronto. And I also just think the West, I mean, like, I know I'm getting off topic. I just think the Western Conference is easier to get through than the East. So he might actually go out West and find a team there, but I was saying it all year that their identity is inconsistent, and we would see that in every game that they had a chance to take a commanding 3-1 lead. Oh, it's Campbell lets in 5-on-16, or you see Game 6 and it's the Kerfoot taking a high stick on a penalty kill when he had no business being that aggressive. You want to talk about the Camp Fund, whatever. The Leafs power play penalty kill was good enough to kill that one off. You can't. It's harder to kill a 5-on-3. And when you're that aggressive in the other team zone, when you have no right to be, like, that's what killed them. They would have killed the 5-on-4. They can't kill the 5-on-3. But regardless, they didn't capitalize when they needed to. And you saw it in Game 7. Everyone's going to talk about the Tavares goal. The whistle was blown well before he shot the puck, so it wasn't going to be a goal regardless. But and regardless of the game, it happened so early in the second period. They still had 35 minutes or so, 45 minutes or so to figure it out after that. I don't know, man. We talk about firing the coaches. We talk about firing Dubas. We talk about letting Brendan Shanahan go. I don't know. Like, I don't know what they do, because is Sheldon Keefe a good coach? Like, no one knows, because he's had success in the OHL and the AHL, but he just hasn't had the similar success in the NHL. So Dubas is going to have a really interesting offseason. I can't imagine any days off for him. But yeah, I'll just leave it. They don't have an identity, and I don't think they will until they win a playoff round. And I think it's very valid for that to be the case because the regular season doesn't matter. And I think it's a compliment to the Leafs. I'll end it on that. I think it's a compliment to the Leafs because the league is acknowledging that they are a great team. It's just they're not showing up when they need to. So I think that's why they're saying like they don't have an identity because we know how great they are, but we just haven't seen them like get to that last chip.
No, we haven't. We haven't seen it in our lives. We haven't seen it in playoff series, including this one, and we're not going to see it until what, Adamo? When are we going to see it?
Ever.
Well, we'll have the chance to see it in next year's playoffs.
That was the answer.
That was the answer I was looking for. It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, you talked about a lot of offseason moves as well, Evan. We'll be sort of leaking our thoughts into that in our next or future episode. Rather, I wouldn't say right after this. Maybe we'll give us breathing room. But future episodes of the Leafs Line podcast, where we're going to be addressing a huge topic for Kyle Dubas, what is going to get done. And we gave some brief thoughts of our own, maybe some possible changes, but I think we're all going to go full-heartedly dissecting it in the latter episodes. But that does it for the episode. I didn't want to have this early, but alas, we are here because of the identity of this team. Mary Russo, Evan Davis, Dom Rimoli, and Jared Rotenberg signing off from this overview of the Leafs line, this overview of the Maple Leafs playoff run. This is the Leafs Line podcast. We'll be covering this team for the better or for the worse in the weeks, months, and hopefully years to come. Take care.